Thank you. Thank you for the welcome. Thank you for letting me be here and share some insights with you today. Really excited. Got a lot of interesting things to share. So I will just dive straight into it right here. So first off, I'd like to share a story. Doug Dietz was an industrial designer. He was in charge of designing an MRI machine, the interface, the kind of coverings and everything. And he was really proud of his work. He put a lot of time into this MRI machine, and he was excited to see it on his first day of operation. So he was at the Children's Hospital there, watching his baby, this worrying wonder of his creation, right? This MRI. And he watches this family come in, and this father, and he sees this child, this little girl, crying. And the father bends down and says, "You know what, honey, it's okay. Be brave. We've talked about this." But sadly, that child had to be sedated. And in order to go through this procedure, it broke the child's heart, broke her parents' heart, and it broke Doug's heart as well. He realized he had created a monster. He had hurt this child, and he wanted to change. And it sent him on this journey of discovery, thinking about what he could change about his monster, right? This machine that he had made. And he started exploring. He found resources, and he actually turned these MRIs, these rooms, into these adventures. They would paint the floors with a river and rocks, and they would have aromatherapy, and it'd be this jungle, and the MRI was this canoe with fish jumping over, and it would entrance these kids. They would be coming in, hopping on the rocks, like, "Oh, get on the rocks," and it totally changed the experience for these families. And there was another day when he was watching this new experience in operation, and he was talking to the parents, and the child comes up and tugs on her mom's sleeve and says, "Mom, can we come back tomorrow?" Totally changed the experience. But one thing I'll highlight here is the technician in charge of running this machine broke down in tears at that point. He's like, "How did I break now?" And he talks to this technician later, and she says, "No, you don't understand. This experience reminded me why I'm in healthcare." You see, it's when we have experiences that connect with our human needs and let us help meet other people's human needs that we find fulfillment. That's when we are at the height of our engagement, our loyalty, our job satisfaction. So that's a little bit of an introduction to what I want to talk about today. But why does this matter, right? So this is an example of those experiences that he created for those kids. So why does this matter? This is an idea you may be familiar with. It's the experience economy. 20 years ago, Pine and Gilmore came out with this idea, and they took this idea. It's a value progression, right? We see commodities. You might think of wheat turning into a good, which would be more like bread, into a service, more like maybe a Panera Bread, a restaurant. But then you think of an experience. And that is the next progression of value. That is the way our economy has been moving, right? And 20 years ago, it took a lot of effort to convince people that this was actually a trend. Now it's just common sense. We accept these ideas. But the interesting thing here to also note is at each level, we're meeting a different human need, right? At each level, the first we might be meeting just survival. The next might be more around efficiency. The next service is more about satisfaction. But I would say experience is more about fulfillment. And that's the progression of value. So let's take a look at some of these human needs, right? We understand this trend, but what is at the heart of it? This is something from my studies and also my experience at Workfront. where I started to notice different fields are all saying the same thing, right? SHRM, research in HR, tells you self-efficacy, role clarity, social integration, fit with culture. Self-determination theory, positive psychology, Richard Ryan, Edward D.C., done amazing research on human motivation, intrinsic and extrinsic, competence, autonomy, relatedness, power of moments. If you've heard of the Heath brothers, popular business writers, they're talking about creating moments of pride or insight, connection, and elevation. And you realize that all of these people are saying the same thing. We all have these human needs that need to be met. And the more we can understand those needs, identify those needs, and design for those needs, we can reach human fulfillment in our roles and in our companies, and I hope in our homes. So this is really cool stuff, but how do we actually apply it, right? What do we do with it? So if you've heard of design thinking, it's a 5-step process, very simple. And I'm not going to spend too much time on it here, but I just want to emphasize that design thinking operationalizes humanity. This is the process by which we can take those human needs and meet them. I would encourage you to go research design thinking or even invite someone to come do a workshop with you. Really powerful. This is not just fluffy stuff. This is how we meet human needs. And it's not just me saying this either. I mean, Qualtrics was acquired, $8 billion? This is not just me, right? Deloitte. While I was preparing for this presentation last week, this report came across my desk. Reimagine and craft the employee experience, design thinking in action. People are talking about this. This is real stuff. And the companies that are ready to accept design thinking and act on it are the ones that are growing fastest. So this is kind of another way of thinking about it. These experiences form our beliefs. Those beliefs lead to our actions and the results, right? We don't see those beliefs and those experiences and how people interpret them, but the more we can craft them, the more we can shape behavior. So how would we do that, right? One way I'll highlight here is mapping, right? We understand basic principles about what is happening through an experience. What are the key touch points? What's positive, what's negative? So I'll highlight here a really useful tip. It's called the peak end rule. People remember experiences based on the initial experience, the transition out of the experience, and any peaks or pits in between. And it's proven. So if you have an experience that is painful, really painful for a moment, even though the rest of it might be short, as opposed to an experience that's just kind of mediocre for a long period of time, you're going to remember that experience that was specifically painful, much worse than that other that might have even been longer, right? So that's the peak end rule in focusing on transitions. And as we think about this in the business world, we can think about how we might craft interactions in our companies and with our employees. So that's what I'll talk about here. I'm over onboarding at Workfront. And one of the things we do, I don't take credit for this, this is before I was there, but we send out a swag welcome box. It's a surprise. And it arrives to the new hire about 4 days before they start. But if you think about it, it would be much more efficient, much more reasonable to just wait until they get there, have it on their desk. But you think about this is one of the consistent things we hear back that is positive. It's that initial transition. It's that moment when they're still unsure if they made the right decision. But this assures them, you know what? I made the right decision. And we've even heard that it impacts their family. It's like, this box made my wife feel good about me taking this job and leaving my last company, right? It's such a simple thing, but timing that at the precise moment is powerful. Also, bringing in our executives to spend, 30 minutes with our new hires on their first day is another highly rated, powerful experience. Just takes a moment for them to come in, welcome, have a brief discussion. But that's a powerful peak moment on their first day. I think I'm running out of time here. I'll leave those at that for now. So these are the 3 things I want you to think about. Empathize. Think about those human needs, right? It's a change of mindset in how we solve problems. It's moving from that service or product, right? We're not just delivering a service or a product. Our employees are more than human resources. We see them as people, and we take the time to understand their needs. Thinking moments. Use the peak end rule to really focus in, laser focus on those moments that will really make an impact in your organization, in your home, and in your community. And with that, you can design meaningful experiences on a broad scale and focused on individuals. And I hope as you do so, you'll find fulfillment. Thank you.